Welcome back to Her Birth, Her Story, where we share real birth experiences. I'm Brick, your host, and on today's episode, I am so excited to sit down with Brittany again. You may have listened to her mom episode that we've already released, but she is going to be talking to us about her prenatal breastfeeding course. And I don't know about you, but I have never even really heard about a prenatal breastfeeding course or like really researching breastfeeding before actually needing to do it. And I love her takes on breastfeeding and just the importance of educating yourself beforehand so that you have tools in your tool belt to pull out when you are actually going through the thick of it. Because breastfeeding is not easy. It is definitely something that can be very challenging, but if you have these tools in your toolbox, it'll be a lot better for you to be able to have a successful breastfeeding journey. So let's go ahead and hear from Brittany all about breastfeeding. Hey Brittany, thanks for coming back on Her Birth, Her Story, and I am so excited for this episode just because we are going to be jumping into your course and just kind of you like to call it your passion project of a prenatal breastfeeding course. And honestly, I have not heard of anybody really doing this, and when you told me about it, I was like, wow, like that is so needed in this space. So I'm so glad that we connected. But can you go ahead and just kind of give us your background, like in this space, what sparked your passion and why it is important?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on again. If you listen to my birth stories, I had very different birth stories and I had very different breastfeeding journeys as well. I kind of became passionate about breastfeeding after I had my first, when we had some hiccups. And I think that we spend so much time educating ourselves on birth or what motherhood is going to look like or setting up the nursery. And we might take, a free course offered at the hospital, or we're going to try to breastfeed. And I feel like I help moms so often, and I share my story out loud, and I've built my social media following up doing that. And I heard someone say once, if you've answered the same question multiple times, you should be charging people for the answer. And while I understand the thought behind that, this is not my full-time job. It is just a passion project, but I was having the same conversations over and over and over and over again. And I would do, I call it Coffee with Kovacs, where I'll kind of go live and take questions. And there was a season where I was really just breastfeeding education on the internet all the time.
Wow.
Now, I don't have any certifications or letters behind my name. I actually started a course to get certified, and it was just something that I kept putting off because life is so busy, and this isn't my full-time gig. I am a done is better than perfect kind of person, messy action. And so I was in the thick of postpartum with my third baby. And I was like, I just got to crank this out before this season of my life changes, because I wanted to kind of be in the thick of it and be able to show you positions with my currently nursing infant and all of those kind of things. So I am freshly postpartum when I was recording it. And I just am sharing stories and information that I have from my own experiences, but also experiences of the women around me and things that I've helped people through. And so it just became a passion project because, I have all these different journeys, and I have these stories of women. And again, I had answered the same questions over and over and over again. So I just wanted to put it with a pretty little bow that moms can get their hands on it.
Yeah, that is really, really awesome. Can you just kind of touch on maybe your course and what it is before we really jump into more questions about it?
Yeah, so I wanted to focus on the word prenatal breastfeeding education, because in the heat of the moment, when your nipples are bleeding and your baby is screaming and your husband is like, let me just get the formula, you need to have a handful of tools already in your tool belt, right? You need to know that this is normal, this is not, this is when you should call a professional, this is just something you kind of got to push through. And I feel like hearing those when you're 30 weeks pregnant, 35 weeks pregnant, is easier than when you're in the heat of the moment and you're having the hormonal dip and it's 3 a.m. and baby hasn't, stopped crying all night and all of those kind of things. So again, I am really big on empowering, empowered to empower, and just sharing my story and sharing what might happen. And so that you have those tools to know that Brittany said this was going to happen and I'm just going to push through, or maybe we need to schedule a chiropractor appointment, or maybe this baby needs some body work done, or, birth is traumatic to the baby just as much as it is us, or maybe they were kind of stuck like this for a while and they don't like to nurse on that side now because it hurts their neck. Like, those are all things that if you don't hear before they're in the heat of the moment, it's really easy to throw in the towel on breastfeeding.
Yes, that is really good. This is definitely something that I wish I would have had to with my first. There's just things, especially as a first-time mom, and when, like, breastfeeding is hard, and as much as we want to romanticize it because it is amazing, it is beautiful, it is awesome, but it's also very hard and it is very demanding. And if you don't have all the tools in the tool belt, like you said, you can throw in the towel very early when you just sometimes just need to push through, or a different position. So can you kind of like walk us through, like, were there moments in your own personal journey that really sparked, like, man, I need to create this course?
Yeah. I mean, I decided I was going to breastfeed, and I am very much a headstrong person in that area of whatever that needed to look like. I have friends that exclusively pump. I have friends that exclusively breastfeed donated milk. Like, whatever it was going to look like, we were going to figure it out. And my first, if you listen to my birth stories, he had a little bit of a traumatic birth experience. And so his neck was locked up, and he did end up diagnosed with torticollis, and the chiropractor was our end all be all of breastfeeding. But those first couple days, we syringe fed him, we spoon fed him, I was hand pumping, I was pumping, and that was a lot as a new mom. Like, the baby's on my lap, but I'm connected to the pump, and my husband's helping, but he doesn't really know. And it's a lot. And so that kind of, wow, I wish I would have known that this was a possibility, a very common possibility. I could have prepared a little bit more for this experience. Now, granted, I was already seeking chiropractic care. We are very big chiropractic people. Yeah. Me and all of the kids go every 2 weeks without fail. And so the baby was already going to get adjusted, but he did not latch until his first adjustment. Wow. And so just knowing that that is such a possibility, I mean, a lot of people are not actively, in a chiropractic office doing those kind of things. First experience, like, just knowing, like, hey, baby didn't latch for the first 3 days, like, that could be the window that someone decides to throw in the towel and say, this isn't for me, this isn't working, this is too much. If you don't have a supportive husband or mom or mother-in-law or someone telling you, like, this is part of the process, it's okay, we're going to figure it out, like, those first couple days and weeks and months can be detrimental to your journey. And I see so often, well, I'm just going to have formula just in case, or, we romanticize, like you said, like, it should be natural, it should be easy. The baby crawls right up because it can smell you, and your nipples are brown now so it can see them, and, like, all the things, like, we hear those things, and while they're true sometimes, they're also not true sometimes. And so just pulling back that curtain and say, this could happen. This should hurt. This might not hurt. This is going to be tender for the first time. Your nipples are going to change shape and size and color. And, like, those things that they're kind of taboo. And if you don't have a really close girlfriend or an older sister that's went before you, like, you might not have heard about them. I know one of my things that I had with my oldest, I don't know if I had it with my second and third, but my armpits got brown after I had the baby, like, because they're the same with your, your breasts get darker, and my armpits got darker, and I felt dirty all the time. And I'm like, I swear I showered, and I swear that I shaved my armpits. But, like, those little things that, like, nobody's really talking about or hearing, like, just knowing those things going in, it's like, I want moms to be like, yeah, Brittany said this was going to happen. Brittany said this was a possibility, to know, like, what to do next.
Yeah, no, that is really good. Do you think that, like, the system just assumes that it will come naturally, or is there more to it? Because for me, in the hospital, they just basically said, hey, watch this video, and then you just have to sign a paper. They didn't actually, like, sit there and, like, make sure that I watched it, and, like, if I had questions, they, like, answered it. They were just like, hey, and, like, I'm in newborn bliss. You think that I really care about watching a video? No, I don't.
Yeah. No, that's my experience too. So I had 2 hospital births and a home birth, and obviously have done my own education on the back end. But in a hospital setting, you've got a lactation consultant coming in maybe once or twice while you're there. They have you tracking feeds, but, like, the baby's suckling. I don't know if actually anything's coming out. Like, there's just so much going on. And they're like, yeah, your nipples look great. Baby looks great. Like, they might check for ties, they might not. Like, it's just a very laissez-faire, hands-off from my experience situation. And so that might be your first 24, 48 hours, and then you're on your own. Like, you have to seek out the support group at the hospital. You have to seek out a lactation consultant or a breastfeeding counselor coming out to visit you. Like, you're kind of left on your own, right? Yeah. And it's like, we don't get a manual of how to be a mom or how to breastfeed. Like, they might send you home with a pamphlet and say, this is normal. And, you know, you're setting your timer for, okay, I need to feed every 2 hours. Like, none of that is setting you up to do well. Yeah. I'm very big on uninterrupted access to breast. Like, your baby should be on your chest. The baby should be close to your boobs. Like, you should be the one holding the baby those first several weeks. And like, I think that people have a very unrealistic expectation because we live in a society that says swaddle your baby, put them down, you know, have dad do a night shift so you can rest. Like, I am a very peel back the curtain, like, this is the realistic expectation. Like, humans are carry mammals, which kangaroos and monkeys are also carry mammals. They live on their mom for the first several months and years of their life. Wow. They don't sleep through the night. Our milk is very low calorie, low fat, low protein. Like, they need it often. And so I think we live in a society that says sleep training, your baby should be sleeping through the night by X amount of, you know, oh, that's a sleep regression, or, oh, they're cluster feeding. Like, all these things where it's like, how can I avoid that? What can I buy that's going to make my baby not need me? That is so unrealistic. And like, again, I have friends that sleep train. I have friends that bottle feed. I have friends that formula feed. Like, ain't no judgment. But if I can tell a mom, like, hey, it's normal if your baby is waking up X amount of times. Like, it's normal if your child needs you. Yeah. There aren't enough women saying that. Yep. In the space. And people, like I said, we used to be such a communal, it takes a village society, and now it's just like, if I can't figure this thing out by myself, something is wrong with me. And that's a really lonely and isolating place to be, especially when you're dealing with postpartum hormones and all that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, no, that is really good, and I definitely agree with that. And I think that it's important too that we are all realistic about breastfeeding, just like I think it's important that we're realistic about birth. What do you think are some of like the biggest misconceptions that like about breastfeeding that really break you?
Yeah, I feel like I said, it's just an expectations thing. And I think if you're coming in with unrealistic expectations of like, oh, if I'm breastfeeding, the baby's only going to need me once every 2.5 to 3 hours. Or, you know, like, if I'm breastfeeding, I think sometimes there are influencers and there are companies out there that are like, if motherhood is hard for you, throwing in the towel with breastfeeding will fix all of your other problems. Yeah. And I see that narrative so often. And I have friends that, you know, have bought into that narrative. And I have a woman that I was helping through postpartum, and she didn't exclusively breastfeed any of her other children. And this one, she was kind of, I want to make it to 6 months. And she talked to me about how her postpartum depression was actually less with the kids she breastfed. But we buy into this narrative of, if you can just get more sleep, if you can just hand your baby off, then, you know, all of these other problems you have are going to disappear. And I remember even weaning my youngest, I'm like, okay, I need her to start sleeping better. I need to lose these last 15 pounds. Like, if I wean her, then maybe none of it has changed. She still comes in my bed every night, and I never lost the baby weight before I put another baby in there, you know? And it's like, we think about these things of like, we romanticize on the other side of breastfeeding. Like, if I can just do XYZ, then all of these other things that are killing me about motherhood are going to just go away. And that's not the case at all. And I think that is the narrative that formula companies sometimes, or an influencer that catches wind of, like, there was I think it was one of the Kelsey brothers, his wife just said she was weaning because of XYZ and the baby's only like 4 months old or something. And I'm like, those are the headlines that get, you know, I remember seeing an influencer I follow that weaned because she wanted to start wearing clothes that she didn't need boob access in. And I'm like, I'm not judging you. Bless it. Everyone is on their own journeys. Like, whatever you decide to do, great. But like, don't let that be the story that you cling on to. Like, oh yeah, I miss wearing that shirt or that, you know, bodysuit that I'm not going to be able to get my boobs out in. Yeah. Like, no, like, this is such a small blip in our motherhood journey to do this for 6 or 12 or 18 months. Like,
For sure.
be all in, and that other side of womanhood is going to be waiting for you on the other side.
Yeah, and especially because obviously, just like the cliche of it, what everyone says, the days are long, the years are short, and it really ends up being like that. And you don't have to love every part of it, but when you come at it more of a like, wow, like even though I'm only doing this for 12 months, like this is going to be a very short 12 months, even though right now it feels so hard and so long. These 12 months are going to fly by, and then that season of my life is over. And if it's your last baby, that's your last time that you get to experience that. And I just think that's really, really important. Speaking to like our first time moms, because I think that this is really important, especially like when you don't know what to expect. But what are some of the common struggles that first time moms especially get blindsided by when it comes to breastfeeding?
You asked me a question in our pre-conversation about like input versus output and just like tracking how much. I think that is one of the like worst things you can do is just track every ounce in, ounce out. I would like, just like if you're latching, I can't see how much they're getting. Is the baby satisfied? Are their hands relaxed? Are they sleeping well? Are they having pees and poos? Like, I think that sometimes we leave the hospital and they have us tracking their feeds and how long did they feed and how long on each side. And we get in that spiral of like this anxiety inducing, like, I need to wake them up. Did they get enough? Have they done this? And really, like, if you can just lean into like, we're going to figure this out, that uninterrupted access to breast, like, is the baby peeing? Is the baby sleeping? Like, trusting your body is doing what it needs to do is a huge thing. I also go over something in my course about like the first couple days, they only need this much. And then after that, they only need this much. And if you're formula feeding, they get the same all the time. And your breast milk is going to change because of your babies. And so the most a breastfed baby ever needs is like 3.5 to 5.5 ounces. Wow. And, you know, we see a formula bottle that's 8 to 12 ounces and you're thinking like, I need all of that. Or you see the influencer on the internet overflowing her pumps every morning. Like, you don't need that. Your baby needs like 1.5 to 3 ounces on one breast, and one, like, that is a full pump. You don't need to feed your freezer, which is something huge too, even if you're going back to work. Like, you can pump an extra ounce here and there and get a full feed and have that first day's worth of work. And then on that first day of work, you pump for that second day of work. Like, you do not need a full freezer. If you miss a feed because you do a formula feed or you use some express breast milk, you need to then pump again. Like, it's input versus output. If you're not removing milk from your body doesn't know that you need more milk. And so that is just like the biggest thing that I think moms get upset about those first couple of days. Well, my milk's not in yet. Well, that baby only needs this much right now. Like, as long as you're telling your body to get with the program, by day 3, 4, or 5, that's what's happening. But what I see a lot of moms doing is that first day, it's the first day you're home from the hospital, you don't have a professional telling you everything's okay, your baby is fussy, guess what? That's normal. Like, baby is learning life on the outside. That's when, we don't see, you know, I might try and pump and my body's not reacting to the pump, and you think that you need this full bottle of milk, and those are the days that it's like, well, maybe if I can just top him off with some formula, then, you know, he might sleep or stop crying or whatever it is. Like, that is those crucial first couple days where you're by yourself with your spouse, or maybe your spouse went back to work and you're by yourself. Like, in the thick of those feelings, you need someone to tell you like, hey, this is normal and tomorrow's going to be different. But if nobody has told you that, those are the moments that we do the middle of the night run to get the formula, or we throw in the towel, or we say this isn't for us. And guess what? Motherhood's still going to be hard on the other side of choosing the formula. Yeah. But if you can just get through that first day, you won't have bottles to wash or pumps to wash. Like, that is like, you know, the trade-off there.
Yeah, and I think that's really important to just what you're saying about just like influencers. Everybody is always wanting to show their freezer stash and wanting to show how much they've pumped, and like, then we just all start playing this comparison game, and then you're freaking out because you're like, oh my gosh, they have so much milk in their freezer, like, I don't have that. Well, guess what? If you're exclusively breastfeeding too, your baby is getting what they need anyways. You don't have to have a freezer stash. I mean, sure, sometimes like if you're wanting some freezer stash, great. But just because you don't have the freezer stash, or you're not pumping out 10 ounces of breast milk every single pump or anything like that, you're not failing. You're not behind. You're not less than. Like, your baby is getting what they need, and that is the most important part of it all. It's not about just trying to drink as many electrolytes as you can, taking all of the supplements just so that your milk can have so much milk, because then you have an oversupply. And to be honest,
trying to
like keep up with that, like, man, I commend people for being able to keep up with that, because like me, I can't keep up with that. Like, I honestly hate pumping anyways, so that's exclusively breastfeeding for me is just a lot easier. But obviously everybody's different. Everybody has different experiences. But if a mom, especially like a first-time mom, is going into breastfeeding thinking like, oh, this is just going to click naturally, what would you want her to know, or what would you want her to expect instead?
There's a small chance that it will come naturally. It's something that we've never done before. And like I said, you can have all of the book knowledge in the world, but until it's your baby's mouth and your breast and your hand and your support system, you don't know what you're going to come across. And so that is not enough armor to get you through those first couple weeks and months, for sure. Same kind of thing we talked about at the end of the birth one, but the investment of, and speaking of investment, my course was $179 at launch, and I lowered it to $30 because I just want this to be it's my passion project. Again, it's not paying the bills. I broke even on my website fees and all that kind of stuff. And so I just want it to be I don't ever want price to be the reason someone doesn't hear what they need to hear before they have that baby.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But yeah, the coming natural thing, like, that is something romanticized in the movies for sure. And I think that if you're not decided that this is what you're going to do, the people around you, if your spouse like is just seeing you in turmoil, they're going to suggest the easier fix. If your mother-in-law or your mom or your neighbor didn't breastfeed, like, they're going to tell you, why don't you just do this? I have friend groups where like the whole friend group all exclusively pumps, and they're like, well, if baby doesn't latch, like, there's always this option. That sounds terrible to me. Like, having pumps to clean and milk storage guidelines and all that kind of stuff all the time. Like, that's an option for sure. But if you're primarily going to be with your baby for those first several weeks and months, like, I would rather troubleshoot the back end and be able to exclusively baby to breastfeed. That is the easiest thing that you will, once you get over that hump, it is peachy. Unless you have mastitis and some things that can come down the road. But really, truly, like, those first couple weeks and months are crucial to it being easy on the back end versus like having to have clean water and formula and a way to heat it up and a way to sanitize and all this kind of stuff down the road, where in the heat of those moments at that 72-hour mark where your baby is inconsolable and you guys are getting to know each other, like, that is all part of the process sometimes.
Yeah, I love that you said that too, because like for me, which I just obviously, I don't have any background in this. All I have is my experience. But with some of my friends who started having babies after me, I just really encouraged them that once you get through that first week, that for the sore nipple part, I feel like that first week is crucial to just like push through, because baby's figuring out, you're figuring out, and obviously if you have more education, you're going to be even more empowered. But I think for me, I only really had sore nipples 1 or 2 days afterwards. But then like with milk supply and things like that, I say just get through the first 3 months. 3 months. Because every single time I hit 3 months, it's like everything evens out to where now, like, you feel like you are a breastfeeding champ, because you're just like, oh, I know, let's latch, you feed, we're good.
The 3 month mark is really crucial as well, because I think some people, we talk about the three to 4 month regulation. Your boobs no longer feel like they're exploding. And sometimes moms then think, well, I'm not producing enough. My baby needs something more. So that's an actual, like, something that I also educate on, because you do get regulated. And it's like, I'm not leaking in between feeds anymore. And I actually have to, like, figure out what side I fed on last. Like, All of that is part of the process too, but that's another hang up that a lot of moms are like, oh, I lost my supply, or maybe your period came back and you're like, oh gosh, like I'm not producing enough anymore. Nurse through it, and on the other side of your period, your body figures it out again. So
yeah, that is really good. And just kind of going into that too, I want to play a little bit of a game that our listeners really like, just because there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of myths out there too. So I'm going to read a statement, and then you either say myth, true, or partial truth. And then you can expand on it if you want to.
cool.
Okay, the first one is breastfeeding should come naturally right away.
Myth. We kind of touched on that. It's just, it's you're getting to know each other. You're doing something for the first time. Your body's doing something for the first time. Your baby's doing something for the first time. So nothing natural about that. In any other area of life, you do something for the first time, probably not going to be a pro at it day one.
Yeah, for sure. And it takes practice, and like obviously you're learning, your baby's learning, and just trying to find that connection between the two of you, I think, is crucial. Next one, if it hurts, you just have to push through, and then you'll be fine.
Yeah, and you touched base on this a little bit. That first couple week or two, you've never had anything on your breast this much in this way, pulling in this way. It's going to be uncomfortable. I remember, I doubt she'll listen to this, she's out of this season of life, a mom telling me to scrub my nipples with dry washcloths before my birth to prepare for breastfeeding.
Oof.
I never did it, but I'm like looking back and I'm like, that was your advice to me? Like, it's going to be tender, it's going to be different and new. But if it's truly actually painful, if you are bleeding consistently, if you have cracked nipples, there's likely something that needs released in your baby's mouth. Now, we can talk tongue tie and lip tie all day. The more I get educated, the more I'm a little bit more conservative about that, because pretty much everybody has ties these days. But there is body work that you can also do, and just like some exercise that you can do with your fingers in the baby's mouth to release the jaw and that range of motion of the neck, which I talked about a little bit in my birth stories one. The baby is in a stuck position inside of you for a while. And so if the baby doesn't have a good range of motion, that could be pulling and causing pain in your nipple as well. So the baby might need body work done to help with the pain of your nipple. I've used nipple shields for a quick season on that first week or two if you've got a lot of tenderness. If you need a tool for a small period of time until your baby, like maybe your baby's born with a very petite mouth and your nipple shape is just like too much for the baby, that's all okay too. Your baby's mouth is going to grow very rapidly. Your nipples are going to adjust, and they're very elastic. God made no mistakes. And so if you need a tool those first couple weeks until you can get the tension in the baby's body released, or, you know, the baby's mouth to grow a little bit, like those tools exist for a reason as well. And so it's not a loss if you need to do those kind of things. But if it hurts, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to be tender. But if it's hurting beyond those first couple days, there's likely something going on with the anatomy of the baby's mouth or neck.
That's good. Number 3, I am not producing enough milk.
Yeah, that's a big one. There is a small fraction of women that actually don't have enough glands. The rest of us just are overthinking everything, right? Because I mentioned, like, those first couple days and weeks, your baby doesn't need a whole lot. Your body knows exactly what it's doing. Your baby is communicating with your body. The saliva from your baby's mouth is actually telling your body what kind of milk it needs that day. It's like the coolest stinking thing ever.
No kidding.
And when you hit that 3 to 4 month mark and your body starts to get regulated, or when your period comes back, there are different periods along the breastfeeding journey where we can really get in our head about not producing enough. When you introduce solids, your baby might not be nursing enough. There's something called distractive nursing, when your baby starts looking around more than they're interested in what's going on on your chest, and that can all cause a dip in your supply. It's all very natural. Baby to breast is going to tell your body to make more. If your baby gets frustrated for a quick feed because there's not enough, your body's going to produce more the next feed because it knows that the baby needs it. And so just trusting that process. If you're a very type A mom, which if you've listened to me talk for a few minutes, maybe you can tell that I'm not, easier said than done to just release that pressure of yourself, because you don't have to track every ounce in and out. You don't have to track every diaper. Like, that is the anxiety inducing stuff that you're handed as you're leaving the hospital. And if you can just, baby shouldn't need to eat yet, they just ate, like that unrestricted access to breast, those first, like that first window of time is really going to establish your relationship with baby, your body making enough milk, and just trusting the process that, I eat 3 meals a day. Sometimes I want a snack, sometimes I don't. Like, same thing with your baby. I saw a reel once that was like, do you drink water in the middle of the night? I drink an entire one of these in the middle of the night sometimes. Like, I wake up to pee, I roll over and my mouth is parched. Same with your baby. Like, they might want a sip of a drink, in the middle of the night when they shouldn't need it, or they just ate. But really just trusting that you're establishing that relationship. Long-winded, but yes.
No,
we get in our heads about not producing enough, but really, truly, it's a communication back and forth of what your baby and your body are doing, and it's going to constantly change, the same way that you might be hungrier one day because of activities or a growth spurt or whatever. Baby's the same way.
That's really good. Okay, you need to wait hours in between feeds.
False. We also just talked about that. Like, they tell you when you're leaving the hospital, like every 2 to 2.5, 3 hours. And, maybe you're getting that routine established and that feed takes 40 minutes. And you're like, gosh, do I go from the beginning of the 40 minutes or the end of the 40 minutes? Like, just don't overthink it. If baby is fussy, offer the breast. If they want it, they'll take it. If they don't, they won't. And just kind of, again, one of my biggest things I say over and over in my course is unrestricted access to breast those first couple of months is really going to be the success factor in your long-term breastfeeding journey.
Yeah. Formula and breastfeeding can't be mixed. It's either all one or all of the other.
I'll keep people happy and PG and say we'll do medium here. I really do believe that to breastfeed and have a successful breastfeeding journey, it is important to not introduce formula into the mix, especially those first 6 months. Now, again, there's a time and a place for every little caveat and fine print. If you've decided to combo feed and you feel good about that, great. But I do think there is an uptick in influencers talking about combo feeding for convenience. And kind of what I touched on earlier, just combo feeding is not going to be the end-all be-all to helping you enjoy motherhood more. Like, missing a feed, like your husband can just as easily do a breast milk feed for you to sleep a little bit longer or whatever. There's just a little bit more prep on the back end. I love the Haka or something that's going to catch while you're nursing on the other side so that you don't have to hook yourself up to a pump. Mm-hmm. I am very passionate about not introducing formula unless you really have to those first couple of months. So again, don't want to make anyone mad, but I do think it is really imperative to your breastfeeding journey.
Yeah. Small breasts equal low milk supply, or large breasts equal large milk supply?
Yeah, definitely not. Your milk glands change with every pregnancy as well. And small breasts don't have any factor on what is actually going on behind the scenes there. So I think, again, there's a very small percentage of women that have that actual low glandular, like, anatomy diagnosed problem. Most of us, we just get in our heads, again, with all the things we've previously talked about. And so I don't think there's any correlation there at all.
You should feel instantly bonded while breastfeeding.
Not that either. We talked a little bit about in my birth episode, like, your bonding experience with your baby is going to be different with every baby, every season. There's a million different factors. You might resent your baby because you're the only one that can breastfeed, and that's all a factor of those first couple weeks and really establishing and thinking, well, if I could just have my mom do this feed, or if I could just, whatever those things, those ultimatums are in your head, life is not solved on the other side of you not breastfeeding. And so the bonding experience, like, every baby is different. There's different postpartum things and hormones and temperaments and all of that kind of stuff to take into place, but it may be instantly magical, and it may be a really stressful period in your life, and that's okay too. Yeah.
You can't breastfeed if you go back to work.
Also not true. Like I said, there is a rhyme and a reason on the breastfeeding, and you don't have to have 400 ounces of breast milk in your freezer to go back to work. Just pump a little bit here and there, an ounce here, an ounce there, to get a full bottle, get those bottles prepared for that first day of work. And then while you're at work, you pump for the second day of work, and it's just in the door and out the door kind of thing. I have many friends that work full time and breastfeed their babies still.
Yeah, that's awesome. Your pumping output automatically equals your milk supply or what your baby drinks when nursing.
Absolutely not. I've had seasons where my second and third, I hardly pumped at all. And then, I would have a trip that I'm preparing for and trying to collect milk, and I have an oversupply and baby is well enough and my body's not reacting to a pump. Something else that is so common in the breastfeeding world is the wrong size phalanges, and that can really affect your output as well. And so your body and your baby were made for each other. Medela and all the different brands that are now is not made for your baby, and the pumps or the flange size that comes with the pumps is almost never the size that you actually need. And so I think that sometimes, if you haven't pumped and you try and pump, your body's like, what is this? This isn't what, I normally give milk to.
Yeah.
Definitely not a direct correlation. Your baby is going to suck in different ways than the pump and vice versa. And yeah, it doesn't determine. And even one pump to the next and one feed to the next, your baby is going to get different amounts and different things. And so just really trusting your body is like the biggest thing that I can say, and just like pushing through all of those, easier said than done, again, if you're spiraling, but pushing through all of those thoughts is really important.
Yeah, that's good. What does it actually look like to prepare for breastfeeding before the baby arrives?
Yeah, I think it's just the educational piece. I mean, there's not too much you can do until you see what your baby's mouth is doing and see what your boobs are doing. But really the educational piece of, like I said, thinking like, oh, they said this was going to happen, I need to contact this person. Or they said this was going to happen, I just need to push through these first 2 days. Or whatever it might be, like that is the biggest piece, because like I said, in the heat of the moment, it's going to be easy to, go to formula or throw in the towel or whatever it might be. But if you have that education beforehand, it really empowers you through those first couple weeks. And when you're in the heat of the moment is not the time to learn. When you're 3 days postpartum and you're asking ChatGPT or Google, or you're looking up that influencer that you remember doing a live about this, 6 months ago, that is like not the time to take in that information, because you're brain dead, you're stressed out, your hormones are crazy. So I think the biggest thing that you can do while you're still pregnant is just get your hands on the tools. I mean, you don't need to go buy the nipple shields or the things beforehand, but those are the things that you have your husband running to the store for instead of the formula, at least in my experience.
Yeah, that's amazing. So for a mom who has maybe struggled with breastfeeding before, how can preparing prenatally just really change her next experience?
Yeah, I actually have an interview in my course of my friend Paige, who exclusively pumped with her first and was able to nurse with her second. Oh. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it was her sister who exclusively pumped. So she was just like, well, first day was hard, I might as well just exclusively pump because my sister did it. And so she prepared herself with different supports and resources and, empowered herself to make her second journey. She actually has 3 kids now. Her second journey different. And so same thing with your birth. I mean, all of my births were different. All of my breastfeeding experiences were different with, one had a tight neck, one actually did need ties released. And so just knowing what the hiccups might be and then having resources to fix those hiccups, and having them front of mind as you're going into your crazy postpartum experience.
What's your biggest piece of advice to a first-time mom who really wants to breastfeed her baby but just doesn't really know where to start to truly educate herself?
Yeah, I mean, my $30 course is a good place to start. But again, same kind of thing I was wrapping up with my birth experiences was just find other moms that have had good experiences. Find other moms that are going to be authentic with you and in your corner. And if you need to call them up at midnight when you're 4 days postpartum and ask a question, they're going to be there for you. And I know, again, easier said than done. We all live in this tight isolation now versus where our mothers used to have that village feel. But there are resources on the internet. There are people out there sharing their stories and sharing their heart. And again, that's where my passion project came from. I was having the same conversation over and over again in my DMs, and I didn't necessarily want to go the lactation consultant or the breastfeeding counselor journey or, path, because a couple of reasons. I didn't want to be on call 24/7. If a mom needs you, she needs you right now. And then I also, part of me was like, I don't want to have to charge someone $350 when they're 2 days postpartum, they're bleeding out, they're emotional, they're crying, and they need someone right now. And so I felt better with charging someone on the back end with the educational piece. And now I'm not saying lactation consultants are not worth $350 for the couple sessions or whatever it might be. It's definitely an investment in your future, and it's worth every single penny. But that was just why I didn't go down that path. Just having that information that's going to empower you through those first couple days.
Yeah, I think that's really good too, because it is important. We obviously spend a lot of time preparing for birth and even sometimes the postpartum, but a lot of times things postpartum we kind of like forget about because we're so worried about, oh, I want an unmedicated birth. I need to know the XYZ. And yes, that is so important. But I think we need to bring more of an awareness to educating on breastfeeding, educating on things that happen postpartum, because you don't know what you don't know. And if you're not preparing for it, it's going to come through and it's going to hit you like a train, because like breastfeeding is hard. It is rewarding when you stick it out, I feel, but it is hard. And when you don't know, you just don't know. If you could shift one thing about the way women approach breastfeeding before they give birth, what would it be?
The educational piece, because I feel like you just said it, and I always say it too, like birth is 12 to 24 hours and breastfeeding is 12 to 24 months. And we spend our time setting up the nursery and doing all these other things when this is really the key that's going to make or break our postpartum experience. And like you said, some of us have girlfriends that have went before us and told us the stories, and some of us haven't. And so if you don't have someone in your corner saying, hey, this is normal, might happen to you. I had a friend that had several hospital births and then had a home birth, and she's like, I still feel like I got hit by a truck. And I'm like, you did. Your body just ripped itself open to get your baby out. And if nobody has looked you in the eye and told you like, hey, it's normal, like that's your pelvis and your tailbone are gonna hurt for a couple days, like that is all part of the process. And if you don't have that tight-knit community of women that are vulnerable and authentic in your corner, sometimes you got to pay for it. Sometimes you got to invest, $30 or $100 to get that kind of information and that authenticity before you head into that season of life.
Can you speak to the mom right now who thinks that it has to be so systematic?
Yeah, so I've had people come to me and say, my doctor wants me triple feeding. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that sounds so terrible, because that essentially means you're putting your baby to breast and then you're pumping and then you're giving your baby a bottle of pumped milk. And that is going to take a long time. And then you're going to blink and you're going to need to do that again because your baby needs it. So I think that each feed needs to be looked at individually. Like, is the baby getting satisfied at the breast? No. Well, then let's hold off on the breast. Let's pump and give a bottle and let our boobs have a break for an hour, right? When you're in the thick of it and you're like, well, so-and-so said I need to be doing XYZ, that is exhausting. And I think each feed and each moment needs to be looked at as like, okay, what does my baby need right now? Do my boobs need a break? Do I need to pump for a couple feeds to give, if the baby is wound up and the mouth is too small and we've got ties and we need tension released, like if you're constantly offering that to your breast, that's when your breast is going to be cracked and bleeding and painful. And so each feed one at a time in those first couple of days where it's like, okay, something is wrong here. Let me just get my baby what it needs. I remember there was an older woman. She's since then retired. She was the last RN on shift before we got dismissed from my first birth. And my first baby was a traumatic birth. He had a hematoma. He was all tied up on his neck. He was not breastfeeding. We were pumping, and I was syringe feeding him and spoon feeding him colostrum, okay? She walked into my hospital room. I almost said hotel room. And she said, nobody else is going to tell you here this, but I'm going to bring you a bottle, because a bottle to put the breast milk in. Because I think that modern day lactation consultants and, whoever you might be getting your advice from, it's that all or nothing thinking of like, if you put a nipple in, that nipple confusion, that's a thing that we hear sometimes too. The baby can't have a nipple of a bottle or a pacifier. It will get confused with your nipple. Listen, my boobs were doing its job. My baby's neck needed released. And so why would I, throw in the towel when I have plenty of breast milk to give him? And she's like, I'm going to send you home with these nipples. Nobody else is going to tell you this, but there's no reason that your baby's not getting your breast milk when you leave here and you're stressed out, right? So what that told me is like, okay, there's a problem here. We're going to get it fixed in a couple days. But until then, I'm going to pump and give my baby breast milk. Okay. So that was empowering to me. That was a tool. She looked me in the eyes and she was like, it's not a failure that you need to use this for a couple days. Right. Yeah. And I think so often we get in that like, well, I need to offer the boob and then pump and then this. And then that's when it becomes super stinking exhausting. The baby's exhausting. It's overly hungry because it's not getting what it needs. And now it has to wait for you to pump. And that's when we start to spiral of like, this is too much. Yeah. How can I do something else? And so if we can just look at one feed at a time, like, okay, has the baby been to breast at all today? No. Well, then let me maybe offer that. And if it goes sour and everyone's screaming, like, let me just pump and give express milk until we can get into the lactation consultant, until we can get into the dentist to see if we need something released, until we can get into the body work. Wow. And I think that just finding that gray area in those first couple of days that to give you whatever you need to get to the next day and to get to the next feed. I have a friend right now that's like 3 or 4 days postpartum and having some issues, and it's just like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like one choice at a time to really get you to that next feed and to the next day, and you know, the baby getting used to being outside and you getting used to the baby and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Just by yourself one feed at a time, I think is really just the best you can do sometimes.
Yeah, that's really good. I like to end my show with one question that I ask every mom and every birth professional. It's, if you could speak one piece of empowering wisdom into the hearts of the mothers listening, what would it be?
You are capable. Like, I think I said the same thing, but like, your body has what it needs. Your baby has what it needs. You just might need a little bit of help those first couple days and weeks. And as long as you surround yourself with the right support team and the right resources to get you through, that is going to make the world of a difference on your, long-term journey. So
yeah, that's awesome. Where can guests connect with you and purchase your course?
Yeah, so my personal Instagram and social media is Britt with 2 T's, BrittKovacs. And then my breastfeeding one is The Empowered Boob. And my course is linked right there in my Instagram bio as well. So The Empowered Boob. And like I said, it's only $30 right now. I actually just took it down during this pregnancy because I just want moms to have the information versus having any hangups there or, deciding between this and that.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And thank you so much for coming back on Her Birth, Her Story.
Thanks for having me.
I am so glad that Brittany came on here to share about her course and just breastfeeding in general, because I think that even though there's a lot of people who obviously talk about breastfeeding, there's great consultants out there, I never had felt that I really got a lot of good education on breastfeeding. But I just love how she's very passionate about it. She has her own experience walking through it, because I think that's always a big thing for me, is taking advice from people who have also walked through it. They've been in those trenches, so they understand. And her creating this course, I think, will really bless you, especially for those first-time moms out there who don't know what to expect, because breastfeeding, a lot of times it is over-romanticized, but it is one of the best decisions that I feel that you can make for you and your baby. I feel like she does such a great job at just explaining things and helping you to feel confident going into your breastfeeding journey. And if you want her course, it will be in our show notes here, or if you want to connect with her, then that's also in our show notes, so you can feel empowered through your breastfeeding journey. And please just share this episode with a mom who is either getting ready to walk through breastfeeding journey, or maybe she's in the trenches right now. But I think that this episode is going to encourage and help her to be way more informed moving forward. Thank you, Brittany, so much for sharing. As always, if this episode really inspired you or even sparked some curiosity when it comes to breastfeeding, share it with another mama who needs to hear it. And please just like, rate, review the show. This helps us to reach as many moms as we possibly can. And don't forget that this is your body, your baby, and your birth. And we are reclaiming birth one story at a time.